And welcome to this week's weekly update, where I'll be discussing my recent learnings from the legend Bill Knowles. For those that don't know Bill's work, he's a reconditioning expert based in America. And I was lucky enough to go to spend a day with him, as well as some colleagues in the AFL industry 2 weekends ago. Gold Coast Suns hosted the event. They had Bill down for a period of time. I think it was about a week with their staff, and we're lucky enough to have a whole day where they opened it up to staff around the industry. So very thankful for the Gold Coast Suns for bringing Bill over. I've been following his work for a number of years now via either online or just learning from other practitioners that have done his workshops and professional development. So really eager to be able to get that opportunity, and thanks to the Melbourne Football Club as well for being able to pay for me to do my work over there. It's very relevant to my role in working in rehab with the Melbourne athletes. So super pumped for that opportunity and wanted to share some of my key takeaways from Bill's work. He definitely has a preparation focus. Movement is medicine, and really earning the right for progression, but ultimately trying to prepare the athlete to be, if not at a minimum, how they were physically from an athletic point of view prior to injury, and if ideally being able to actually increase their capacity as an athlete, not just from the injury point of view, but also as their general capacity, physical capacity as an athlete. And it was an analogy that he brought and referenced throughout his whole presentation for the day, where are we really preparing the athlete to be, if they're a Formula One, are they a Formula One at the end of your preparation, or are they simply, for example, a Porsche, which is a good car, but it's not quite the power athlete or the capacity that a Formula One engine and car has. So if we're working with elite athletes, are we bringing them back to that elite physical capacity, where his approach is close enough is not good enough? And for most, particularly general pop, they'll take the Porsche, of course, but when we're working with the top of the top, we want to make sure we're bringing them back to their very best so they can compete at the highest level. So that really resonated with me, particularly the preparation-based model from injury also resonated with me, where basically we want to have a phased approach from the very start. So let's say they've had an operation, how we deal with that early on healing phase, and what we're doing during that phase while we're respecting healing and recovery, but how can we get in movement from a neurological point of view so that we're not hurting ourselves down the track. So if we're just stuck in a sling or a boot the whole period of time and there's no movement, and it's going to make it a lot harder in the future phases when we're integrating our drilling, running progressions, and of course change of direction and speed work. So if we can drip feed some movement in with the doctors and surgeon across it, of course, so we're not putting the athlete at risk, but we're setting ourselves up for the future. So you're constantly thinking about what are we doing now, but also where are we taking the athlete and preparing that athlete for success. So if the next thing you're progressing in, your straight line running is going well, you'll be doing some low level change of direction, lateral speed mechanics in the gym and on the field with drilling before you intro in your change of direction at speed work. And same thing with your speed progressions before doing sprints, you'd be working on some max velocity, upright, vertical force production in the gym, up on a wall, and building that into the athlete from a technical point of view before you actually progress that athlete into that stage. So you're constantly thinking about where they're currently at, working on those capacities, but they're also drip feeding in where you want to take them. That way, there's no surprises for the athlete. It should feel relatively familiar, and they feel really confident to be able to nail that next stage in their training. So that was a really big one. The other aspect of it is from a mental point of view, making sure you're focusing on what the athlete can do rather than what they can't, which can be quite common. And I know that's something that's especially following a prescription and really have with the athlete, where there'll be a list of things that they can't do, and that's triple the size of the things that they can. And just simply that visual really paints a clear picture in that athlete's head of a fear-based model. And that's something we want to try and steer clear from, because we want the athlete to actually feel confident in the process, confident in their body, and obviously be aware of the things that they want to avoid from a risk point of view, whether it be infection or just being able to allow the joint to heal. Whatever the pathology is, we want to respect that phase, of course, but ultimately we want the athlete feeling like there's a lot that they can do, and they should feel empowered through that process from practitioners, really getting them to feel confident that they can. There's a lot that they can do, and then they should be focusing their energy on those things during each phase. So that was a big one: can do versus can't do, and that feeds into the phase by phase approach. So rather than having a program of list of things that they can't, just leave that out and have the list of things that they can do. And then throughout conversation, you just would flag some things that you probably just want to avoid at the moment, as they're not part of our program yet, but we'll work towards those. The respecting injuries are neurophysiological, and the way that he had a good visual for that, where he called it the dimmer switch. So typically, especially if it's been a really significant injury and Bill didn't deal with the phase 1 approach after the surgery, and let's say a knee was stuck in a brace for a long period of time, he could see that the ability to be able to recruit muscle mass, during knee extension, for example, with the quads, was diminished, and therefore the dimmer lights was right down, opposed to someone with a full healthy knee. Their dimmer is right up, full lights. They've got full activation and normal function of that quad, and that feeds into his general philosophy. If anyone's seen his work, which I recommend YouTubing Bill's work, you can see how dynamic it is, and there's a lot of motor learning involved in his drills, particularly in early stage, and that's for that neural response that he's trying to get. So being able to teach those movement patterns and bring those movement patterns back, and really take the athlete out of their head and into their body with constraint-based learning. So challenging complex tasks like using a hula hoop over a stick while the athlete's standing. They might have a knee injury. They're able to stand. It's not high load through the knee joint, but you're going to get a lot of co-contraction through the trunk and the shoulders and the hips by being able to keep that hula hoop on the stick the whole time as you're rotating around. So straight away, because the task is so complex, they're not going to be thinking about their knee. They're just going to be moving, and the body's intuition is going to get into a good movement pattern, and we're going to train those muscles to work in sync and in coordination again. So having that philosophy in place, that we're not just doing really simple base movements, but also we've got to attack. Yes, we've got to build up their muscle mass. We've got to build up their strength, of course, with your simple movements like leg press, leg extension. There's a place for that. But at the same time, you want to be making sure that you're improving their ability to be able to work as one whole athlete, and being able to train their body to move and get those movement patterns back, even if it's very, very low level, like sitting on a box to start if they can't stand. So challenging the nervous system with complex movements was another one, and making sure that you're not just looking at from purely an injury point of view, but you're looking at the whole athlete was another big takeaway. So highly recommend, if you're interested in working in Bill's work, make sure to check out when he's next in Australia, or for those listening overseas and are lucky enough to live in America, make sure to check out Bill. And he does have some presentations on YouTube that you can watch that go up to 40 minutes. For Academy members, if you want a little bit more information, you think this would be a good one for me to present, like I do every month on our Get Better plan, and you want me to, I've got some videos and some slides that I took from my own note taking, then let me know in the discussion forum, or just email me and I will fit that in January. As December, we've already locked that in. That's next Tuesday, where I'll be discussing my 20 key programming principles. I've sent out an email today for all Academy members with the Zoom link, so make sure to join me there. I record every month and they live inside the Academy. I'm no longer posting 50% of that presentation to the podcast, as it's exclusive for Academy members only. So if you aren't an Academy member, all you need to do is join by going to preparelikeaproacademy.com.au. It's $20 a month. We have one for coaches, where it's specific to strength and conditioning coaches from a programming and coaching point of view, as well as business. And then we have one for footballers, and athletes, where it's specific to things like recovery, your strength, your power, and of course your conditioning. So more from an education point of view. So if that interests you, head over to our website and you can join there. It's only $20 a month, and I catch up with the members every month for a Get Better Plan call, as well as answer any questions in our discussion forum. All right, let's get into this week's podcast. So on Tuesday, I'm actually going on as a guest to the Drafted podcast. So make sure to check that one out. The host is Kai, and I'm going to have him on my podcast in the new year. So looking forward to having a chat with Kai there on the Drafted podcast. That'll be on Tuesday. Wednesday, our interview with Nick Kane, the head physiotherapist at the Essendon Football Club, will be published. So make sure to tune in for that one. Nick is an expert in everything to do with the medical side of AFL injuries, rehabilitation. He's got great experience since being at the Essendon Football Club, but also business and management skills, running clinics as well as sports maps. So we dived into everything to do with football. Nick was a handy player as well growing up, so he's got a good sense of the game. And then we also discussed business and how to run courses and how to work your way up in the AFL industry. So if you're a physio that wants to work in elite sport, make sure to listen to this episode on Wednesday. And of course, any athletes looking to better themselves, maybe you've had a bit of bad luck with injury, make sure to check out Nick Kane's clinic, as there'll be one definitely near you that if for those based in Melbourne, that you can check out for any support. On Thursday, we have two live Prepare Like a Pro live chat show. We have Nathan Spencer, who's a head strength and conditioning coach at the New South Wales Institute of Sport. That will be 1:00 on Thursday. Nathan also worked at the Orlando Magic in the NBA for over 4 years. So really looking forward to catching up with Nathan to discuss all things about adaptability and how important it is for strength and conditioning coaches wanting to work in elite sport. So that if that interests you, make sure to join Nathan and myself 1:00 on next Thursday, the 15th of December. It's our last interview, one-on-one interview for the year, as I'm going to Hawaii and America for nearly 3 weeks. So and I leave on a Thursday, return on Thursday. So it ends up being 4 weeks of no live interviews. And then we have Vaughan Stewart at 2:30 p.m. He is our senior men's Caulfield Grammarians Football Club coach for the 2023 season. I actually went to uni with Vaughan at the Bachelor. We completed our Bachelor of Sports Science together at Victoria University in Footscray. So really looking forward to having Vaughan on and excited to have him join our team for this year. That will be at 2:30 p.m. So if you have any questions for Vaughan or Nathan, make sure to hit me up on our socials, and I'll make sure to add those questions into our run sheet. And then our Friday bite-sized episode will be with Andrew Russell. I was lucky enough to I interned under, we call him Jack, Andrew at Hawthorn Football Club. He was a high performance manager there during their 4-peat, and he's now at the Carlton Football Club. So his bite-sized episode that we did last year will be released on Friday. So if you enjoy that 10-minute, 15-minute bite-sized clip, make sure to listen to the whole episode if you haven't already. And like I mentioned, it's our final week this week. So for the week of the 12th of December, it's our final week on the podcast. So if you have any questions or you want me to present on anything next week, let me know on our weekly update. I'll be reviewing the year, including the what's worked quite well, key learnings that I've had from the year, and of course the top 10 podcast most listened and highly engaged episodes from the 2022 year. So we've had a lot of amazing guests, and we're going to pick it down to 10 like we did in 2021. We're going to pick the top 10 and release a special episode some point throughout December, just before Christmas. So I'll release those top 10 on Thursday for our weekly update. It'll also be our yearly review, and I'm really looking forward to catching up and reflecting on what the year has been to 22. It's been a massive one. Daughter was born, full-time role at Melbourne Footy Club. We bought our first unit, my family and I, so both from a personal point of view and professional, it's been a massive year. So really looking forward to reflecting on the year that's been, and then also discussing what 2023 will bring and all the exciting things on the horizon. So if you want to join me on that live chat, that will be next Thursday at our regular time at 12:00, just before the interview with Nathan. And reminder as well for Academy members, the 20 programming principle will be on December 13th. That's at 4:30 p.m. for our Get Better plan. So if that interests you, make sure to jump on. We have 2 opportunities left at Prepare Like a Pro, one with Heathmont and one with Upway Tacoma Football Club. So if you want a junior coaching role to be able to lead a strength and conditioning program at a community-based football club, so cut your teeth, learn everything you need to know for what it's like to work in football, as well as be mentored by myself and get paid. It's a $2,000 role for pre-season and in-season. Then hit me up at jack@preparelikeapro.com. Our basic process, I'll qualify you, and then if I feel like you're up to the role, then I will forward you on to the head coach to be able to make the decision to see if you're a good fit for the club. So we've got a couple of opportunities. The Knox Football Club roles have been filled. The Caulfield Grammarians roles have been filled. But we've still got one role left at Upway Tacoma and one at Heathmont. So if you're interested, make sure to hit us up. Power tip. First, we'll go to our programming update for the week, and then I'll go through our power tip and what I wish I knew 10 years ago. Okay, so here's our week. I'll just enlarge that a little bit so it's a bit easy to see. So last week of the pre-Christmas block, and then we'll have a 3-week Christmas phase where we'll ramp up our strength and power program. Like last week, this week is also a slight intro into some new movements, and then I've reduced some of the volume just to respect the fact that there's going to be some big sessions, no doubt, on the field this week. So volume is down, but the intensity is up. And we've brought in a couple of new movements. So I've introed in some new movements, which I like to do during an offload deload week, is introduce some new movements. And then once you're familiar with those, we ramp up the intensity and their volume. So really important that you move really well, focus on speed and execution of technique this week, and pour all your energy into the final 3 sessions with your football club, so you can get a good break over Christmas, hit the ground running. Pre-season, it's really important to be fit, physically resilient in the new year, because January and February are typically the biggest loads that a footballer will go through over the year. They're the biggest months. So you want to make sure that you keep your consistency up during this time of year, so you set yourself up for success over that January, February, and really feel confident going into the practice match phase, whether you just want to play your best football, get drafted, or maybe edge your way into the senior team, whatever it is. The consistency is the most important thing. So you should be in routine by now, and the key is to be able to keep that routine over the Christmas block so you don't lose all the hard work that you've put in. But in terms of the strength program sessions, you should really only take you 30 to 35 minutes this week. We've got obviously a Monday, our lower body program, where the box squat is our key lift. That's going to move into a barbell back squat for 3 weeks over Christmas, just to work on your end range. I really love the back squat without the box, to work on things like your ability to be in a good triple flex position that you need for like a ground ball, and being able to be strong in the contest, and then work on that triple extension for things like vertical jump out of a, or being able to work on your first 2 steps on the field when you're in that ground ball position where your hips really close to the ground. So make sure while you're doing box squat this week, you're working on strength, and then when we work on the back squat next week, you're really working on that strength in long range. Barbell bench press on Tuesdays, our key lift. We've brought in a bit of contrast work. So you do a barbell bench press, let's say first set of 6 reps, it's like 60%. Then you do 3 5-second max efforts into the floor press, iso push, and then you go straight into a med ball throw, where you're trying to throw the ball as far as you can. And that is just working on, we're trying to improve your motor unit recruitment. So when you're throwing that ball, it should feel really light, and you'll notice your performance to throw that ball really far will be far greater if you were doing that cold without the heavy lifting beforehand. So if that's your first time doing that, see how you find it. Wednesday, we've got our total body power sessions. So make sure to move really explosively and as fast as you can for every rep. Thursday's day off. And then Friday, we round off the week with our trap bar deadlift and our box jump as our key lift. And then Saturday, I've thrown in an extra hill session for you all. So you can attack that one and then enjoy the week off the football program the following week. Obviously, we'll still have your strength and power program and your conditioning work, but you won't be training with your club for a couple of weeks, so you can enjoy training in your own time. Like I mentioned before, the presentation, our Get Better plan for this month is all about my programming principles, my top 20. So on Tuesday, I'll be discussing top 20, how they have evolved over the years, as well as how to apply them. So for all the coaches, or just for athletes that are interested in being maybe a strength and conditioning coach or personal trainer one day, and you love programming, this will be a great presentation for you. All my presentations are really dynamic, and more than happy to answer any questions. So if you can't make it, don't stress, I'll record it, but also please get engaged and write in your questions on this topic, and I'll make sure to answer them in the recording so you can listen to my answers, as well as perhaps some of those members tuning in might have some insight from their experience. In terms of power tip for this week, practice your running drills to increase your sprinting and change direction efficiency. I would recommend doing that before every running session. So then when you're in a group setting, you know how to switch, you know about ankle stiffness, you know about hip lock, you know about your trunk stability. So when you're going into this Christmas period over 3 weeks, where you got some time off next week, make sure you really hone in on either running with a track and field athlete, or running, or just following some drills that you can work on those key areas, which is ankle stiffness. So you've got, if we're using the car analogy, you got full tires. There's no point having a Ferrari engine with flat tires. You're not going to go anywhere quick. As we know, acceleration and deceleration are really important on the field, and you need ankle stiffness for those qualities. Number 2, hip lock. If your pelvis is moving all over the place while you're sprinting, you can put yourself at risk of injury, but also you're going to be leaking energy and you're not going to be able to maintain your peak speed or be able to produce repeat high intensity efforts. So hip lock is really, really important. And then in that as well, our trunk stability is critical. So making sure you've got a nice stiff core, particularly when you're doing change direction, you lead with your chest rather than having a sloppy chest and caving the shoulders down. But lead with the chest, swivel the head nice and quick. And you're going to be strong in those in close positions to be able to fend off if you need to, or you're just going to be a bit more dynamic if you're tight through your core, and being able to lead with your chest first. So they're the key ones. Make sure you practice them. Just treat it like goal kicking and any craft field-based kicking. Practice is key and consistency is key. And then once you know the drill, you can add high intensity to those drills for it to transfer. And that, of course, that is important, because if it's not transferring to your running, it's not going to improve your on-field performance. So that's the key power tip for this week. Make sure, if you're not already, don't just do a 2-minute jog, go into 4-minute mobility and then start your session. Practice at least 5 to 10 minutes of drilling, with a key focus on either improving your acceleration, your deceleration, your change of direction, or your sprinting mechanics. And then in terms of what I wish I knew 10 years ago, it's a good segue. We're going to keep this theme nice and consistent this week. It's the effectiveness of track and field drilling for speed efficiency. So that's something I wish I knew 10 years ago, or I respected more 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I was more focused on the physical capacity. So, i.e. improving your max strength, how heavy you can lift, or improving how fast you can run your 20-minute time, or improving your 2K time trial. So just the capacities. I'm now much more valuing how you produce those drills, and less is more. So the execution of myself, the coach, being able to filter what's a really good drill for that athlete. How can we progressively make it more challenging, to challenge them not only physically, but also their nervous system as well. So that motor learning is going on. And then ultimately, how can we transfer that to on-field football performance? So that's something I wish I respected 10 years ago. And for those coaches listening in, if you're like me 10 years ago, make sure to start following guys like Franz Bosch and Bill Knowles, who are experts in this field, and they've got plenty to provide, as well as John Pryor, who I was lucky enough to do some one-on-one work over the last couple of months with. So check out their work. Thank you for tuning in to our second last weekly update for the 2022 year. Thank you for everyone that's tuned in to the podcast this year. It's amazing to see all the listens and downloads. If you could like and subscribe to the show and give us a 5-star rating on whatever your favorite directory is, that would go a long way into helping us reach more listeners. And I'll see you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in.